Greetings, Doom-related friends and acquaintances. Welcome to another quote-unquote episode of Doom Mixtape. This time I'm playing a map from a set called Voyager by a Russian mapper named BeeWen. Does not have a real name that he or they go by. But Voyager is an interesting set, but yes, I played through a few maps by BeeWen for this channel before. One of them was this map called Acid Jazz from Alt, and another map was called Controlled System from Sacrament. But this is a solo WAD released in 2013, and it's never been officially completed. So my understanding... so this is not actually a properly released WAD. If you Google Doom Voyager WAD, you can find, I guess he made a Facebook page for the WAD. But some levels are just not complete. Most of the levels that are there are complete, but there are some levels that are just like a box. There's nothing there. And then is one level that is only like halfway complete. But a lot of them are... I just realized that I had a save that says Ass Demon in it. So this was semi-pseudo sort of released in 2013. And if you thought like Controlled System or, you know, a map like that was really big and long, then welcome to Voyager, because every single map in this set is that long, really, and potentially even longer. These maps are ginormous, and so I did an interview with BeeWen for when I was writing an article about alt, and also I talked to Lainos, who I'll probably play a map from as well. And I mean, we were talking through presumably Google Translate on both sides, so you know, it's easy for miscommunications and stuff. But what he said is that essentially the gist that I get is that this was meant to be a you know, like a group mapping project that he ended up taking over. And the idea is that you're supposed to go to these differently themed worlds and activate destroy portals that lead to some kind of center laboratory. So there's differently themed worlds in this set. I think there are like 5 worlds or something. Probably my favorite ones are the desert levels, which are at the beginning, just because I think the desert theme goes well with this set. But all of these maps are really, really long and really complex. There isn't like... The one thing I really liked about Alt is that it kind of mixed a lot of different approaches and styles together. That's something that like Azamale was very good at doing. He's very good at doing these big complex maps, but also like kind of smaller, shorter maps. But this is all big complex maps. It's kind of astounding how much was put into these maps. Like it's not your average everyday Doom set by any means. It's kind of intimidating and terrifying, to be honest, and I played through this map probably like 5 times now, and I still don't quite really understand it. And this is just one of, I don't know, probably 15 or 16 maps that are in this set. Frankly, I don't know why it wasn't just, you know, reduced down to 15 maps or something and then just that released, but whatever. So yeah, he sent me a link to this set when we were doing that like interview, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just skim through these maps and see if there's anything worth talking about. And then I like ended up playing through the whole set, and it took for fucking ever. Like it took weeks to play through this set. I'm not even joking. I mean, now that I know where I'm going, it took, this playthrough is like 50 minutes, but like it might take me a day to get through this map if I were like really playing, like really, you know. And like this is one of the maps that I actually beat, you know, properly when I was playing through it. the first time, but some of the other ones I didn't, and only beat them when I came back later and was like, I'm just gonna, bang my head against the wall and see what I need to do, and hopefully I'm gonna beat this map. So I guess my feeling on this set is it's like both just, I'm kind of in awe at like, it does not feel like Doom, and I think that was sort of the point. I think it was sort of validating to talk to both like Lainos, who had like an actual translator, so his answers were a little bit more, I could include more of them in the interview, or in the article that I did for Waypoint, because they were translated into English by somebody who, by not machine translation. But I think like it just all these people who wanted to do something a little more complex really wanted to make their own games, and just settled on making it in Doom. And I think he said in his interview, or when I was talking to him on just like a DM, Doom mechanics strongly limits the implementation of these ideas, but finding solutions to these conditions has its own charm. And at the time, he was working on another project, which is kind of weirdly special to me in a weird way, because when I tried to like rejoin the Doom community, I started this project called Doom 2 in name only, which kind of became, I don't know, like I really didn't know what I was doing, and I thought it would be a good idea to like make maps that were basically just inspired by the names of Doom 2 maps, but then anyone else. The idea was that if you played through Doom, or if you saw, like, in 1995 or 94, if you saw a list of Doom 2 maps, and you were just, like, imagining what they might look like without having played the game, how would you design them? So that was kind of the idea, but I think there were problems with that. Well, one, I just wasn't, like, really in the shape to, like, be doing that because I hadn't mapped much. So I think that's why people made fun of that project. But also I think that I think maybe they were also mad that I came up with that idea and they didn't, because it was actually a good idea. But also it was like one of those, like, I get it, like I've been in communities, where people start projects all the time. So anyway, I didn't end up, I only like worked on it for a few months, and I was like, okay, well, a little in over my head, and I don't really know how to implement like quality control here and say no to people, because I'm like, brand new to this stuff. And I was like not very confident about finishing my own map. I still am not very confident. I only finished one map, but I would like to make more Doom maps. It's just, I don't know, it keeps getting put off. Anyway, the point is, that project ended up getting taken over by somebody else, and it had a reputation for being bad. I personally don't think it's a bad set, but then people got mad because it got written up. I think I tweeted about it once, and it got written up in like PC Gamer or something, and they were mad that their sets didn't get written up in PC Gamer, and it's like, I don't really have any say in, what gets written up or not. I just tweeted it once, and I guess it had a hook or something. But anyway, so that happened. I personally don't think the set is that bad, and there's some mappers who are pretty new at the time who are like, more well regarded now. Specifically, I'm thinking of, there's a mapper named AN_Mutt, who is like pretty well regarded now. I think that was like one of his earlier maps. And also like Syriac Harris had a few maps in it. And that was when he was like participating in the Doom community, before Going Down was released. So I think there's actually some quite good maps. I actually might go back and play one of the maps, because there was one map by this author named Processing Control. if it feels like I'm not talking about this map much, believe me, there'll be time. Right now, what I'm trying to do in Voyager is I kind of only figured out that this is what I needed to do more recently, which tells you everything. Basically, you just need to activate 2 switches that will open a main gate that's in the center and allow you to exit the level. But the route that you have to take to inevitably get to those 2 switches involves like several layers of recursion. And this is kind of a non-linear map in that you can, activate those in any order. You can go to any place. I think that's actually, I should say, why I liked this map more than some of the others, because some of the other maps use things that limit your mobility, like the water and swamp levels, sort of have you trudging around in this kind of very slow, material. And I think you just kind of have to get used to the hostility of this set. Okay, here's one thing I was going to say. So when I was playing through this map normally, I was like, oh, maybe I'll find a secret if I jump down to this little side railing. But no, this is a required path, and you have to take it in a very circuitous route. I have to go up and over and shimmy along these things, and I have to do this in order to beat the map. And I think when I was first playing through the map, I got to the end area. I unlocked one part of it, but one of the switches wouldn't activate. I think that's what happened. And it took a long time, and I think this was the last thing that I found. So naturally, it ended up being like the first place that I really go in this playthrough, and then the other part that I need to go to kind of ends up being later. But yeah, you have to do that. This set also has a lot of falling down and dropping on things, as you probably saw. Like, there's one central area that I keep running back to, where there's an elevator to like windows where you can jump out, and one of the windows jumps out onto a raised platform. You can actually get to that platform through other means, but it's easiest to do it that way, and that's also how I got onto the like railing, and that's how I got the super shotgun. So that's what I was doing previously. Anyway, the thing I was going to say about BeeWen is, so I guess the Russian Doom community had seen Doom 2 in name only, and they thought it was a good idea, but they thought it had some problems, namely that, which I think was a good idea that I didn't even think of, that people should have used a limit removing port instead of the original Doom, and they should have used, been able to use custom textures, which I think it would have helped distinguish it, because that's the problem of like making a vanilla Doom set, is people didn't realize. I think that was one of the criticisms, and that was one thing that was like bothering me, but I was too like anxious to critique at that point. Is that people would just make maps that were like the original maps that they were supposedly inspired by, which was not the idea at all. You were not supposed to do that at all. So the Russian community made a Doom 2 in name only set, which again never got finished. There are a lot of these sets that didn't really seem to get finished. I don't know, it seems like the peak period of productivity for this group of mappers, which includes Lainos and BeeWen and Azamail, Dragon Hunter is another mapper, Big Memka, who I'm going to play a map from, Archie, a bunch of other, maybe Memphis too. Those are all Russian map. Well, I guess one of them is Ukrainian, but I think the most productive period and the stuff that I tend to come back to is all kind of between the period of 2010 and 2014, 2013. So kind of weirdly apt that this fits into that, because BeeWen has another set called Relictum that is more recent. He was posting it on the Doom World forums actually, and I don't like it as much. It's more like original Doom maps, but it doesn't, I don't know, I think he has a few tropes that he sticks to. Like, his maps tend to be very like, it's very like symmetrical. I think of it as being like Kubrickian, but also kind of like these puzzle boxes. And I think it's just kind of hard to live up to a set like this, Voyager. So I kind of just wish it would be completed, but I understand the frustration of putting so much into this and just kind of being like, I just don't have the energy anymore. I think I said this earlier. I think, but yeah, going back to Doom 2 and Name Only, when I found out that the Russian community did that, I was like, kind of really, really happy about that. One, because I thought it was a good idea, and two, it's because like I really like a lot of the Russian mappers, and it's kind of, I was just kind of tripped out by anything that had anything to do with me influencing that community. Which like now that I've talked to a couple of them, I don't quite feel that way, but yeah, I mean, like these are the kinds of maps that kind of brought me back to doing Doom mapping. Right now I'm trying to get a really silly secret where I'm trying to fall out of window here, and fall into that well to get a megasphere. So there are multiple ways to do a lot of things in this set. I'm pretty sure I had to do it that way. But that other side is a place that I needed to go without even realizing it, and I have to end up doubling back there. Because that's where the yellow key is, and I need something. I think that's the only key in this map. Probably would help if there were more keys to know where you're going, but I think you really just have to know. You just have to get into the rhythm of this particular like style, and just know that it's gonna take forever. This is the main teleporter room that it teleports you to where you can drop down, and yeah, this is the place that I've been dropping down. I also, it looks like I picked up, I think, a rocket launcher on that little section of desert sort of patch that I was looking at. So yeah, this particular map, which is the third of these maps, I think there are 4. The fourth one is interesting, and even kind of bigger, more combat heavy. But what I like about this one is the fourth one is very much, there's like one central temple area. This one is a bunch of different sort of houses, and it's very open-ended, and the ones before this aren't as open-ended. So I really like, you really get the like sandbox kind of feeling from this map right from the get-go. You can kind of go, right from the get-go, you can kind of go a lot of different places. And I think that's like, this map is maybe a little bit easier to get into, though not necessarily easier to complete than some of the other ones. And easier to see the appeal of. I like this little area. This is not required. It's just a little, like, you can see all the work that's been put into this. I mean, I don't want to like, if I spent the whole time talking about like the details in this set or this map set or this particular level, I'd be here forever. So you can just honestly see it for yourself. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like Doom. I mean, a lot of these textures presumably ripped from other games. I remember I saw one from it's like Hexen or something. A lot of times they're ripped from like Heretic or other games. But that's what I really find fascinating, is it's like something that ends up being a cohesive feeling project. The custom enemy sprites too are really good. I'm not so keen on the music in this level, but there is better music in other levels. It's just very repetitive. I do like it when they try and use non-MIDI music, because it does add a different atmosphere. And this is like a common feature of Russian sets, like blown apart walls. I see it so many times, but I think it's just a detail that works well within the Doom engine. You can do crumbling buildings kind of in an interesting way, as you can see here. But just all those details, like, and then this one goes out to a secret. But you gotta be careful with movement in this particular set. I was laughing earlier about the fact that there's a save that says Ass Demon. There's this like Doom. I think they're called Doomer boards. They release like a lot of sets, but they had one called Cybes Freaky Colonoscopy. That's where that save name came from. Anyway, yeah. So I through going to that place, that ridiculous place where I had to, fall into the side, activate some switches. That's what activated that. Another platform that allowed me to access this area. I was looking at it earlier just to show you, but I was talking about other stuff, so you didn't hear it. Here's another, this is a good example of the kind of thing that you're in for in this set. A lot of, sort of hopping from different places to other places, and it's this very, sort of blocky, sandwichy version of trying to suggest something more organic and slope-like within the limits of this engine. It can be frustrating to navigate, but I kind of like the abstractness of it, especially because it's accompanied by so much detail. Like the buildings all look really nice. I fell here. I think that happened to me before when I played this map. So I have to give the author the benefit of the doubt, one, because this was never fully properly released per se, even though it says it's a 32 megabyte or 32 level WAD on the Facebook. That's not true, because there are just some levels that aren't really completed at all, but also just the massive size of these levels and amount of detail. I completely understand some bugs and things fucking up, honestly. Especially for one person to have done this. This is this is just insane for, there are single person megawads, but they don't have levels like this. There's so many things that you have to account for in these levels, because there's so many pieces and parts and little puzzly things and difficult navigation that you have to do. Whereas something I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of set by, my mind is blanking, but some more popular megawads by one person. They might have big maps, but they all tend to be more combat, doomy oriented, arena type things, which are easier to make faster and sort of populate monsters with. And so this is really taking the hard way. Oh, and you really feel like you're taking the hard way every single step you're playing this set. I don't know. This is not a it's not a map set or mapper that particularly cares about you or what you want. You just have to play within the rules of what is established here and just hope that you can find your way. But I will say this does it's very replay friendly, because I think I've started to appreciate the set more on its own terms. I think it's just too much to have, if this was ever completed, it would be way too much to play maps like this. They should be released in little chunks or something. This is easily the size of a single level map set, and I think even if he had just released the desert maps, we'll say desert maps especially, because I think those are some of my favorite. Although my favorite Voyager level, I'll probably play later, is not this one. This is probably my second favorite. Even if the desert maps were just released as a standalone thing, it would probably win a CAC award. In my mind, maybe some people would find the progression too cryptic, but I think there just really isn't anything else like it. And there are big detailed WADs. There are open-ended ones the ones that Lainos makes. And I like his maps too, but these are even more kind of puzzly and kind of difficult to penetrate, and there's more tend to be reliant on combat rather than open-ended exploration. I'm playing it on Hurt Me Plenty, or the equivalent, Just because there's already like 400 fucking monsters, like I would rather focus on other things, you know? For older map sets or things that I know are not going to be as intense combat-wise, I usually play Ultraviolence. I think I played Ultraviolence for the last map on the Wailing Horde, but yeah, for these I have no problems with playing Hurt Me Plenty. I think it's called like medium voltage here. There are a lot of little secrets. I think I'm trying to get to this room that requires a whole thing to get to. You can probably see there was an open window, you know, I needed to climb up these platforms in order to get up there to where I can fall down, because there's no jump in Doom. So there's a lot of stuff like that in this set where you have to sort of creatively... It's very environmental. It's like a lot of... You really have to pay attention to the environment and like little details in order to progress, because otherwise you're going to be hopeless. So in that way, I think I'd said something a while back about alt kind of being a combination of the sensibility of Myst and Doom in the same place. I'd say this really fits that in a very almost literal way, because there is that kind of like Myst sensibility for progression. Although it's more like environmental navigation than solving, you know, specific fiddly puzzles or whatever. But if you think of it that way, like the pathway forward is not going to be straightforward, even though like there's like there are a lot of weirdly symmetrical things about his maps, which I think can get tiresome if you played like a ton of them in a row. I think I don't tend to like so here I could go up those stairs and go into this area, and that's where I need to exit, but because I haven't activated one of the sides of those switches, I don't think I would be able to activate that switch to be able to exit. So now I have to go and do the other part of the map. So you only saw like one half of the map really, which is just insane. I don't know. There's so much ground that this covers. But I was just like figuring it out while I was playing this video, because I was not used to being able to access this part right now. So I was like, do I need to go here now? And then I was like, oh, this is going to be a boring video if I can just exit there. So, by the way, I love the crashed like spaceship. Other parts of the desert levels, they have like little dinosaur skeletons made out of Doom geometry. I think there was like a boat on one of them. Map, the one after this, Sendenium 4, has even more just kind of random pieces and parts kind of in the desert. In some ways, like, that map is as good to show as this one, but I like this one's a little bit more open-ended and explory. But yeah, no, I didn't realize, I kind of forgot or didn't realize that you had to go to both sides. So I was like doing it just because I felt like, oh, maybe this is all optional. Because there was one map, I think it's map 15 in this set, where you can complete it pretty early on, and then the other route is optional to get to the secret level. And I didn't realize that the first time that I played through this set, so I was playing all the secret level accessing stuff and didn't realize you could just exit in this other part. But then when I played it through again, I found out that you could exit really early on, and I was like really confused. So that just goes to show you. And there aren't like Doom Wiki entries for any of these things. There are some playthroughs online, but because of the nature of like the complexity, and a lot of times it's people who are playing it for the first time, they don't know exactly where to go. It's not like you're watching a UV Max speedrun or something. So you're a little bit on your own here. I'm trying to drink my tea before it gets cold. The imps are an actual threat here. I love the sound that the shotgun makes in this. it makes a more like, you know, beefy sound. It sounds really powerful, especially when you kill something with one shot, with the super shotgun equivalent. It's like a double barrel kind of thing. God, I could describe all the little things that I'm doing here. This is such an example of like, you have to hit that switch. This switch will open up this area, but it'll raise the stairs, but I have to go and enter this from the bottom because there's a bottom entrance, and that's the only way that those doors will be open now. Because if I tried to enter from either side of those doors, even though it looked like I should be able to go through them, I wouldn't be able to. So this is like, you have to go the right way. Yeah, you can see it. That opens up now. This has like a cool texture. I like the, like, there's like a sort of leopard print floor texture that I see in some of the desert levels that I really like. But yeah, I'm actually not supposed to be here right now because I needed to access this other part. And the way that I go back there and access this after playing through this part is I jump out a window in a place that I previously was, and I'm not even sure that you're supposed to do that, but you can do that because there's things in another room that I was in earlier that are supposed to lower, and they've lowered before, but I just didn't do what I needed to do to lower them. So I was able to access it that way. So there's a lot of that going on with this set, basically. You can maybe improvise a little bit, or it feels like maybe, hey, I didn't realize that it was supposed to go that way. I like this room because it feels different from the rest of the map. It's like sort of an organic space taking over. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but when with the blood stains, there's like a 9-inch nail symbol. I'm pretty sure, like in the sprite, which is just the most funny thing to me. I also just like, it's weird to think about, because 9-inch nails is like, I think Trent Reznor is from somewhere in Pennsylvania. That's like really like 2 or 3 hours from where I grew up in Ohio, and probably similarly like rural. And thinking of like someone like that's music just being this like universal thing for, you know, certain types of people like worldwide is so weird for me to think about sometimes. Definitely something I thought about a lot when I was living in LA, but something I still think about in New York a lot too. Just how much of the entire world is aware of this place and the nuances of it, and, you know, people that come from it. But yeah, this room, I think I mentioned before, this is kind of like, I consider it the hub because it's the easiest to access, and I think it's the only way to get back up once you fall in the pits. This is a similar thing of like, yeah, like you, I'm looking out where the yellow key is, and I need to get out to that area. And I think I just realized that, so I'm trying to figure out another way to get there. Because another building that I was in earlier, I could have gone through the windows, but I didn't know how to lower them. So yeah, that's where I'm trying to get to right now. Trying to find a different way into it, but this is the building that I'm supposed to access it from, but I can't go out the windows. They're barred off right now for whatever reason, and I still haven't been able to lower those. I don't think I ever actually do in this playthrough, which is funny because it's just one of those things that like I did it like when I was first playing through it. I did it right away, and then I kept thinking this area was required, and it's just a secret. It's one of those, like, you know, find the different looking picture kind of things. You have to shoot the switch. A lot of, like, tiny switches. You have to know where they are. I got most of the secrets in this map, so I will say, like, over time, and I never used any guides to play through this, so... So I'm pretty confident in my ability to, like, find this stuff. I think it's just patience and time. Can't even remember what I was talking about. I think I was talking about 9 Inch Nails. um, but yeah, so I end up having to go through the window of another place that I'm not even sure was the right path. I like that crumbled column. The all the details of like ruins and stuff in this set are really cool. To be honest, it looks like something else. Kind of hard to believe it's in the Doom engine. Sometimes it just feels so much like its own game. It's hard to believe that I'm fighting Doom monsters and using Doom weaponry sometimes too, because the sensibilities feel so different, just in so many different ways. From a lot of, not only just from, you know, stock Doom, but from a lot of what the Doom community creates. So I think the only way that you could make this kind of thing is like if you're trying to sort of transpose much greater ideas onto like a Doom WAD. And I think when I talk to like a lot of the Russian Doom modders, it's like they were doing it because it's like there is a semi built-in audience for Doom, and it's something that is like has a community and resources for to make something within. And there were some Russian mappers like Eternal, who will probably play a map from eventually, but he sort of preceded this like wave of Russian mappers. It was like, you know, Clan BOS and like a lot of those people that I described. His maps, you know, had a lot of the similar kind of ideas to them, like more trippy and visuals, a lot of impressive visuals and effects and things like that. So I guess he's like kind of the precursor. Shadow Man is another Russian modder person who has made a lot of stuff, but they also had a set that I think I'll play a map from. There was like a speed mapping set called Heroes Tales from 2010 that kind of precedes a lot of this stuff. And it's very all over the place. I really don't like some of Shadow Man's maps because there's such obvious use of like copy and paste. It's like, just because you can do that doesn't mean you should. But, so yeah, I was supposed to follow out these windows in that, like, where this little thatch roof area is. I was supposed to fall out those windows and come here because there's, like, little sort of vertical things blocking those windows. So I improvised and went through the windows on the other building that I was already in, and I was able to, like, run over to here, and that's where you pick up the yellow key. So if that wasn't intended, it's certainly something you can do, and I didn't need to figure out how to raise the bars in that other room at all. Even though I think the previous playthrough that I did of this, when I was trying to figure out, you know, what I needed to do to beat this map, I did raise those and go out that way, so feels like I go a different way every single time I play this map. And I play this map like, I think I might have a better sense of what this map is now, but I played this map several times and I still don't quite know where things are. So that kind of gives you a sense of just how like complex it is. I like this room with the archvile. It looks very nice. Yeah, it's hard to know what to say. Like it just doesn't even feel like Doom in some ways. It really feels like its own thing, which is why I kind of like I felt so much like when I was playing through these maps that I needed to play through at least this one and maybe one other in some form so that people see it. And it's not like no one has played these maps, but because it's never been properly released, you know, posted on the Doom World forums and on id Games archive and stuff, this map doesn't necessarily have any kind of reputation or people who know about it. And I honestly think that like Relictum and some of the other stuff that the same author has made is a little less interesting. So, or more than a little less interesting. I mean, I think it's fine. I just don't like it nearly as much. I don't think the maps are nearly as memorable. I think that's the thing. You do something so big and ambitious like this. Maybe there's some burnout involved. There are mappers like Archie, who is like did more like abstract kind of experimental stuff early on. I like his maps from Sacrament and a couple maps from Alt, and then most every map that he's made past a certain point has been kind of like more slaughter maps, and those are more popular like within mainstream Doom community, but I don't really like them as much. So I do think there's like, and this is something that like Lainos had said, is that like a lot of that stuff kind of felt like it was losing its uniqueness, and maybe trying to just kind of fit in more with the mainstream Doom sphere and not be like kind of mocked for being too weird or esoteric or whatever. So I understand that, but it's a little, I don't know. That's why I was kind of like almost sad when I found out that this was from 2013 and not like more recently. I think I don't know. It seemed like, I don't know if this was ever intended to be finished or not. The interview kind of questions that I asked BeeWen, I wasn't really asking him about this per se, because I still think I prefer Alt to this, even though that this is much more of an impressive like technical and work sort of achievement, just in terms of the overall like diversity, design, sensibility, like how fun and entertaining it is. I think Alt is still like stands up to me as like the best of that, and Sacrament too. But you know, even though this is more impressive, obviously in a lot of ways, but he said something like it seemed like he indicated that he was intending to finish this and that some of the other stuff was like a break between this, but I don't think, I tried to see if there were like, I looked in, you know, multiple different files and stuff, and it said on the Facebook page too that this was released in 2013, and it's not been updated since 2013, so I would assume that it's probably not going to be properly finished. Who knows? Be cool to like see another mapper on this project and stuff, but these maps are so complex that it's like, how would you even like revise them? What could you even do to them without, you know, just making new maps? And it's just such a labor intense thing that I can't imagine. It just seems like a huge, I'm just impressed that anyone made anything like this. I'm sad I really can't show you the full scope of this set, but you're kind of probably just going to see what I consider to be the best of it anyway. Yeah, the best level, it's like a swamp level for me, but this is the second best. I like this area. I mean, it looks really cool. This staircase coming up, like this weird like asymmetrical stairs. This manages to make like a lot of this sort of desert Egyptian sort of textures and like the arches and stuff. It manages to make it look like very natural and organic, which is a thing like oftentimes in other Doom WADs, it looks corny, but there's nothing really that looks corny to me about this particular set. I feel like the texture selection and stuff for what it is really good, and it feels all of a piece even though it's not, which is kind of just impressive in itself. Maybe some of these are from, I would bet some of these desert textures are from the game Exhumed, aka Power Slave. I think it was released as Exhumed in the US. That game is kind of fascinating too, because it's like there's a PS1 and PC version. And the PC version was in the build engine. It's like level to level, and the PS1 one is like a Metroidvania kind of. Been meaning to play it. But anyway, I finally unlocked sort of the second side of this whole thing by going to that little tower that was out in the distance with the archvile and everything. So now I'm finally nearing the end of this map, and it definitely has been a journey. But I'll put a link to this set in the description of the video, so you can download it for yourself and explore. But you can definitely see that, you know, some maps are not done. This map has a thing where when you finish it, it just goes back to it starts this map over again, which is really weird. I don't know why that is. I assume that would be fixed if this were ever completed. So I just used, you know, the map screen to warp, or like the console, you know, to warp. But yeah, I love this area too. Nice little details. But yeah, the next map sort of starts where this one ends. And you have like what I assume is a more like intense kind of slaughter thing if I'm playing with ultraviolence, but I'm like perfectly happy. I don't feel like you're missing much on Hurt Me Plenty, honestly, just because of how complex these maps are, and that it really is about kind of the environments and stuff. But yeah, the combat is definitely more difficult on ultraviolence for sure. So if you want or expect that, I definitely recommend playing it through. Even if you just want to play this map, you know how to beat it now. See, yeah, those switches, I'm pretty sure you cannot activate those if you haven't activated on both sides. I think that's where I got stuck when I played through this map the first time. So yeah, now a giant room of imps, which I'm just like, you know, very dangerously running through and getting mauled. Then I send a Baron on my butt. I'm playing this map on 30 FPS again because I was having frame rate problems, and for some reason it just seems to work better with OBS. So I think I only had one frame drop in this playthrough, and this map is more complex. So not that I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but in any case, yeah, that was okay, I'm sorry. It was Sendentium. That doesn't Sendenium. That doesn't make sense to me because sediment is like sand. Well, whatever. But yeah, this is the first world of Voyager. I like this nice music. The next map I'll probably play something in a similar exploration vein, but not from Voyager. I want to kind of... I'll maybe do several of these kinds of maps in a row. Maybe one from Lainos or somebody else. We'll see. But I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely check Voyager out. I'll put the link in the description to the set. You can explore it for yourself. Definitely worth it. At least a little bit. It's definitely a frustrating set to get through, but worth exploring anyway. And yeah, have a good day.